Thanks very much for coming. As I said, I can't be responsible for the weather. It's going to, hopefully we'll get through before it rains. Good morning and welcome. I'm pleased to share with you the details of my public safety position paper with all who gathered here today. And it's ironic that we're here in Billy Taylor Park, because I knew Billy Taylor. He died as a young man after giving so much leadership to this community. And he was just a great guy, and he was just a force in this area, and serves as a role model and example of what really can happen all over the city with good community activity and good community support. I'm welcoming, also, I walked in today and I saw Bella here this morning, and I remember being here back in 2002 when his name was Hector, wasn't it?
Yes, Joseph.
Joseph Hector was killed in a drive-by shooting, as I recall.
Yes.
That was a lot of years ago. That was 12 years ago. And I think you planted a tree here, didn't you?
Right there, the white dogwood.
In his honor. So.
It only came to my knee then.
Yeah, that's right. But I want to just remember those things, because I remember being here at that time.
We did a lot.
Well, I'm pleased to welcome Kevin Jackson, who's the councilman from this neighborhood and one of the co-chairs of my campaign, along with Leah Williams-Metz, who also is a co-chairperson of the campaign. There she is right there, okay. And Paul Dowdy, the president of our firefighters union, and members of his executive board. Now, you might wonder why I asked members of the fire department to come here also, because what this is public safety, and fire department we often not talk about, because we say, well, you know, what have they got to do with law enforcement? Well, a lot. And they have arson squads, they have all kinds of things in their department. And what more could you ask for than firefighters to be here, because they do contribute to public safety. I have Mike Iamondi here, Vice President of the Providence FOP, and Officer Clarence Goff is the Secretary. Tony Capezza and Paul Sikosha representing the International Brotherhood of Police Officers. Constable George Clark and the Rhode Island Constables Association. Representatives from the International Association of Firefighters. Police Sergeant Ray Howley is supposed to be here, I don't know if he's here yet. And a host of retired Providence police officers, including former Sergeant and now State Representative John Carnavale and retired Major Robert Kelts. And of course, community leaders, advocates, members, and victims of violent crime. This press conference is as much about economic development as it is about public safety, because the two are linked. They're inextricably linked. I mean, they aren't together. You can't talk about public safety without talking about economic development or recreation. Job growth. That's another project that we're working hard on. If I become mayor, you'll see a tremendous change in that. But job growth won't happen in a city that isn't safe. And a city won't be safe when its residents don't have jobs and opportunities to do work that they can take pride in. Listen to these statistics. From September 15th to September 28th, that's in our lifetime. It's only a couple of weeks off, you know, before. We had 1 homicide, 2 forcible sex offenses, 4 robberies with firearms, 8 other robberies, 3 aggravated assaults with firearms, and 24 aggravated assaults. In the early hours of last Saturday, or last Sunday, I should say, a boy was rushed to the hospital from gunshot wound to the hand. This past Tuesday, shots were fired at a car after a car crash caused lockdowns at both Asa Mesa Elementary School and West Broadway Middle School. On Friday, September 19th, a girl almost got kidnapped straight off the street around Burnett and public streets. These are the stories of a city in desperate need of change. The steps that I announced today impact directly on reducing crime and incidents of violent crime. If elected, the implementation of these measures will restore the confidence of our residents and visitors regarding the safety of Providence. The rise in violence on our streets is testimony to an underinvestment in the Providence Police Department. The underinvestment simply cannot be allowed to continue, and it won't be if I'm elected mayor. If elected to office, I will hire more police. More importantly, I'll use new policing strategies. We need more police, yes, and we need to use our police better. That's the key. Right now, there isn't a captain on duty at night. That's got to change. Foot patrols have been severely cut back. Car posts have been split. And of course, the police department is down significantly in manpower. I'll restore them so police are visible and a vital presence in the neighborhoods, downtown, and in and around our elderly high-rises and schools. We need to go back to the community policing strategies that we once had when I was mayor, when Providence was named as the safest city in the continental United States by the Livable Cities Almanac. In order to return the police department to full strength, I propose adding a 2015 Police Training Academy to the fiscal 2015-16 budget. and that will fill the ranks along with the 53 trainees who are currently in the academy and will graduate shortly. Seeking federal funding is nothing new, but grants have been drastically cut due to the sequestering and defunding. So relying on federal monies for public use for police is kind of unrealistic today. Yeah, we can apply for grants. The police department does that, and they do a decent job at it. But even the problem-oriented police office in Department of Justice is all but shut down. It's a website now that you can interact with. And they do funding. We do get money. We get $168,000 for the Olneyville overtime project. We get $68,000 for another project. So we do get money. But the fact is, we get significantly less than we did before. The funding levels of the department, we will try to restore them to levels that are acceptable in the city. You know, budgets are statements of priorities, and we have to understand what the budget is. Understand that the mayor of the city of Providence today, Mayor Tavares, put a budget together that has some one-time solutions. Those one-time solutions are as follows. In other words, these revenues are not going to occur next year. $500,000 he sold the skating ring naming rights to. Another $2.1 million if they sell the Urban League building. Another $1.4 million if they sell the Flynn School. They did another $1 million refinancing of the bonds for the schools. That all adds up to around $7 million if they even accomplish it this year. If they even accomplish it. And it's a one-time deal. In other words, you can't sell Flynn School next year because you already sold it this year. So the fact of the matter is, there's a $7 million hole. You're going to be chasing money. Raising taxes is not an option. 4% is the most you can raise taxes without getting 4/5 of the city council and getting a permission from the auditor general. That's not an option. Number one, will never pass. It'll only generate $12 million if you did it. So that's not an option. So what do? We have to look at priorities in a budget and reassess where we are. And remember, the fiscal year, anybody who becomes mayor in January is going to be part of the budget that's in place now. It doesn't end until June 30th. Now, can you reprioritize? Yes, but you have to remember that I've talked to people in the City Hall. I've spoken to people who are watchers of the budget, and they claim that we're going to have probably anywhere between a $15 and $20 million operating deficit this year. That's not a good place to start from. Mayor Tavares called it a Category 5 hurricane when he came to office. I'm reserving my weather predictions for when I get down there, because I don't know what category we're in right now. I don't think a lot of people will tell you. But tsunami is probably a good word for it.
Katrina,
yeah. So we have to reprioritize. And budgets, you know, are statements of priorities. We'll find a way to adjust priorities. I think we spend far too much money in some areas. We have $200 an hour consultants. We have lobbyists to lobby the state legislature when it's not even in session. We have all kinds of those expenses that we'll have to look at. As mayor, the first thing I'm going to do is order an audit of the city budget to identify waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, those are all words. When I've been there before, done it, and bought the T-shirt, there is waste and fraud and abuse in city government. The savings we achieve will be directed to police as first priority. So that's how you budget things. You look at the priority of what you need now. And that's how you reprioritize when you need to, after you look at a budget and see where are we. Now the savings we achieve, as I said, would be directed to police because that's a first priority. Because the first duty of any mayor is to make sure a city is safe. If the city is not safe, you're not going to generate any business activity, and people are going to be afraid to go to those establishments such as Federal Hill. They're somewhat afraid to go to now because of the activities there and the zoning that was allowed there by the present zoning board. So we have every single nightclub in the world that you can find, and there's violence that's increased there, and it's been awful. When's the last time oh my God, a murder on Federal Hill, and also shootings in those clubs up there like Vault, which by the way, the building is owned by the previous mayor, that had the stabbings the other night. You look down the street, you go to FET, which is a club that was supposed to be, when it got an economic development loan from the city, was supposed to be not a nightclub, a music venue. It turned into a nightclub. It got a city loan besides. And then of course you go to the $3 bar and all these other places, and you've got a recipe for disaster. That's got to change. That's got to change. Now, budgets, as I said, reflect priorities, and as mayor, this is my #1 priority. We can't grow our economy if our streets are not safe. Now, as mayor, I would intensify efforts to reduce violence through community engagement, education, and job creation. I agree with many of the recommendations made by the Providence branch of the NAACP, its recent call to action. That statement would make it a primary goal to reduce the high rate of joblessness, particularly among minority youth. My administration will prioritize job training, workforce development, youth development, mentoring, and recreational programs. You know, I was looking at the recreation, where the recreation department is now, and you'll see that the recreation department isn't what it used to be. And I think that has a lot to do with what we're talking about today. When you talk about recreation, to occupy kids' times and intervene in their lives and make sure that they're on the right path, those are things that really have to be re-emphasized. And we're not doing it now because they claim we don't have the resources. Well, let me give you just some facts. During the 1990s, my administration built 5 new recreation centers, a 100% increase to a total of 10. The new centers were built in the West End, Sackett Street, South Providence, the Vinnie Brown Center, and Nunnaconnecut Park. Additionally, the 2 oldest centers, Davy Lopes and Zugalo, were refurbished in 1992. Plus, the Madeline Rogers Center was rebuilt in 1999. Since then, no centers have seen major capital improvements that are needed. And only, listen to this, they don't even have a bus, I don't think, in the recreation department anymore.
No,
Not even
no.
a bus. And they have only 4 replacement vehicles that have been purchased, and both buses are out of service without replacement. How are you going to take kids to around the city? How are you going to transport them without a bus, without vehicles, with closed centers? You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Those are just some of the facts. Now, right here in Billy Taylor Park, and as I said when I opened this get-together, Billy Taylor was a good guy and a friend of mine, and was a young guy when he died at 27 or 28 years old, a heart attack, by the way. But he was an activist that was so much involved. Now, right here at Billy Taylor Park, we ran a successful midnight basketball program. Those kids would come out here and play basketball here under the lights until they couldn't do anything else and went home and just flopped in their bed. And they made friends. They reacted with their youth, with their fellow youth. And also, they weren't joining gangs. They were playing basketball.
That's right.
It was
and
fun
nobody got shot.
It was fun for the participants, and was successful as a program offering diversionary and mentoring activities. We'd like to look into the possibility that the recently established nonprofit Police Foundation could act as a platform to reestablish such programs and expand existing ones. Gang violence. I don't know, 1,800, here are all kinds of numbers, 1,600 members of gangs, here up to 20 gangs. Gang violence is a serious problem in our city, and it requires attention on not just the gang identification and criminal apprehension side, but on the gang prevention side as well. You know, Dennis was in my office yesterday talking about these subjects, and he's a very strong community leader. And he had an interesting concept. He said, why do they call it an anti-gang concept? Or anti-gang unit. Is it a gang unit? If you make it anti-gang, you know, you're sending a different message. And frankly, nobody, and you've got to get to these kids early as far as the gangs are concerned. Nobody wakes up at 22 years old in the morning and says, I think I'll join a gang.
Right.
They don't join a gang when they're 22 or 23. They join them when they're in school, in the 10th, when they're 15, 14, 16 years old. Why do we have recreational activities? Well, you know, we are not going to arrest our way out of this problem.
That's right.
We're going to build our way out of this problem.
Right.
And we're going to build our way out of this problem.
That's right.
To be together. And we must work proactively. Community policing doesn't even exist anymore. I went to a crime watch the other day meeting in West Broadway, and there were very attentive people there. All they were doing were reporting crimes, and the lieutenant did a very good job. Lieutenant Dandrade, I think her name is. She was doing a very good job of telling the people what happened. But there was no proactivity as far as what we can do to prevent this stuff from happening.
Right, right.
That was the problem. And the resources are not there. And the resources don't have to cost money. The resources can be the people I'm looking at right now. Because that's who's out there doing the job as we speak. They just need to have a little bit of help from the city. Whether you talk about night vision, so you talk about, I remember the group we had, some of you might remember, we had the Street Warriors Organization for Peace. That was aimed mainly at Asian kids who were in gangs, and we had football leagues for them, and they were very much involved in the community. I got an old book here. Where did I find it here? I think it's here. It's was sitting with John Reese. Remember John Reese used to run with the police department?
Right there in your hand.
Yes.
Right over there.
Where is it?
Your left hand on the bottom.
Oh, here it is. This one here. I was going through my files. I found this thing from the 70s. Look at this, respect. Educating cops and teens for the future.
Right.
But this, I pull out my files. It talks about respect, which is still a word that means something today. And it talks about how a kid should be respected by the police and how the police should respect kids. And it answers questions about police procedures and trends. Make them familiar with it. And I just bring that to your attention because we were doing all this stuff then. And I can tell you that we had less gang activity than we have now. And if we engage with teachers and use the schools, put police back in the schools, they can spot a kid who's having trouble. The policeman could go right to the house. Remember we used to have the consent forms where the cops could go into the house and the parents signed a consent form?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
Remember that? We had a lot of people involved in that. And sometimes they find something, a drug or whatever, but that wasn't the purpose of the program. The purpose of the program was to keep the kid out of trouble. That was the purpose of it, and it worked well.
Right.
We don't have that anymore. But there are all kinds of programs. They didn't cost any money, but there doesn't seem to be the interest, doesn't seem to be the experience, doesn't seem to be the vision to get this done again, except from the people who are standing here and people in neighborhoods like this all over the city of Providence. So I can tell them that we must proactively work with our community groups to identify and target youth who are at risk for gang membership. If we engage with teachers, parents, and neighborhood stakeholders, we can figure out how these kids are coming into this lifestyle. And we can devote resources like mentoring and programming to turn them to alternative paths. And we can do that. Yes, law enforcement for existing gangs is critical, but equally critical is cutting the supply of young kids who are at risk for gang entry. And I'll tell you something, we have to be a tourniquet as far as those gangs are concerned. We must work these two programs in tandem, one where we prevent and one where we go after, and the violent gangs in Providence. And similarly, we must work to promote pathways out of gang life for those who want to leave a gang. When I was mayor, we even implemented a tattoo removal program. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? But then we did that. I remember that years ago. And we implemented a
skin grafts.
program.
Can you help me out? Hell of a lot of.
Went through partnerships with local medical community. You know what? Rhode Island Hospital did it for free.
Nice.
The doctors at Rhode Island did it for free. You know, they should get a kudo, right? This program was extremely successful, and we found that once free of physical identifiers of gang affiliations, former gang members were more easily able to break ties with their past. And we can do this again, and if elected, I will prioritize the implementation of this important program. You know, the community policing that I established in the early 90s is now virtually obsolete. It needs to be and would be reinstituted as part of my overall approach to reducing crime. More than a decade of decline has left community policing all but dead. I'm going to bring that back so that our police will leverage existing neighborhood assets and work with businesses and community groups to identify the problems of specific neighborhoods. You know, environment, job creation, and also working to reduce crime in a neighborhood isn't just the work of a police officer. But a police officer can be very helpful working with a community group. Let me give you an example. Let's say there's a house in a neighborhood that needs to be rehabilitated. It's a crack house, whatever. Or it's just abandoned. Why can't the neighborhood group go to the police and say, you know, we really like help at City Hall. We'd like help to get this house removed. Why can't we call SWAT and get them involved? The policeman's more likely to get a call back than somebody from a neighborhood group. And I can tell you that activity will bring the police and the community more together, more active in everyday life. We also have to work to make sure that other things that bring down the morale of a neighborhood, whether it's graffiti, whether it's broken windows, littered lots, police can get involved in that. You know that the police officers, and correct me if I'm wrong, police officers today, I don't think, can write a ticket for a problem at a house, whether it's a gutter falling down. You know why? That's a local 1033 deal. You know, where they have their own inspector go there. The police officer should be able. That just takes a simple change in the city ordinances. Just change it and allow the police to write those tickets. And now when you do that, you're gonna have much more of a response by the person, number one, who owns the place, and number two, and I don't say threaten them or anything. Just go there. The policeman knocks on the door. Look, your gutter's coming down. We're citing you, but we're going to come back in a week or so to see if you took care of it. Or give them a warning first, whatever. You're going to find more involvement, because once you improve a neighborhood's appearance, and you get rid of abandoned lots, you get rid of all these houses, now you're going to find that people are going to have more pride in their neighborhood, and they're going to be more involved in the community.
Yes.
That's what you really need. So we're going to bring that back, and we're going to work with the businesses and community groups to identify the problems of specific neighborhoods. We need community building. We're not going to arrest our way out of these problems. We're going to build our way out of these problems.
Right.
And we have to build it out our way. We have to build our way out of crime by being proactive with community police officers working hand in hand and side by side with neighborhood youth, neighborhood residents, and neighborhood groups. That's how we'll move toward a safer street environment in the city of Providence. I can tell you that that this press conference, I'm going to take your questions, but there's no magic to any of this. It's good, hard police work, reprioritizing what our police officers do. It's strengthening the police department, understanding that we have budget problems in this city, but it's reprioritizing our money. And I can tell you that I'm all ready to do this. I think that environment in the neighborhood, economic development. You know what I found out the other day? We give loans out in the city of Providence. We give loans out to start businesses in the neighborhoods. But I found out we also have a workforce organization, right? There used to be the old GIPTA, now it's changed to Workforce. Now it's going to be Workforce Solutions, July 15th. You know what? We give loans out, and this is why I support First Source. We give loans out, and the Economic Development Department in the City of Providence partnership, they don't even talk to the workforce people. It seems to me if you're going to loan money to start a business, why wouldn't you go to the workforce people in your own city to say we're going to train these people? And they've got, and now where do you go to get the people who work in those places? To the community groups, to the community policing. That's how you do it, and that's simple, and that doesn't cost any more money. And there's $6 or $7 million you've got to train those workers. Sitting there idly, and they don't even talk to each other, one department to another. So youth recreation, workforce development, police community relations. That's how we're going to fix the crime in this city and get rid of it. You know, crime, I guess, has been, now people say, oh, the crime rate is not as high as people think. It isn't what the crime rate is or what the numbers are, how they're manufactured. It's not that. It's, do people feel safe?
It's just the idea.
Do they feel safe? And are they willing to go to a place, downtown Providence, walk the streets of this neighborhood, take their garbage out at night without fear of something happening to them? It's the perception that is reality in this city in many, many ways. So I'm pleased that you're here. I want to thank all the members of law enforcement. I'm pleased to have the endorsement of the fire union, 799, and also the Fraternal Order of Police, also teachers and laborers and teamsters and everybody else, but particularly this is public safety. But let me tell you that I also want to address fire just for a minute. Paul here, where's Paul? Paul's in the back there somewhere. Paul, okay. Paul, the average age of a truck, when I left school, I was something like 6 or 7 years old. I won't PolitiFact me on it, but I'm off the top of my head, but they're a lot older today, 14 years older. I think the average is 13, 14, whatever it is. But it's, think about this. Those apparatus, they cost $1 million a piece, don't they? I mean, that's about what they cost. And we haven't replaced them in a long time. And when you call a firefighter, he has to risk his life in the first place. You can't have him do it with equipment that's not good. No. And then, of course, when I was mayor, one of the last things I did was build a new police and fire headquarters in downtown, right outside the downtown of the city of Providence. And I thought that was a great testament to the people of the city who put a lot of money in that building. And it's a great location. It helped the neighborhood come back, and it also was a great operations center for the police. I can tell you that the fire department now, I've had many meetings with them. The fire stations, which we made whole, fixed them around the city, now are in deplorable condition. I remember hiring police officers. I think we hired the first woman firefighter back years ago, and we have more than one now, obviously. But I remember that it was all talk about fixing those stations, and it's been and we did fix them, and now 12, 13 years later, the firefighters themselves offered this administration, if they just got them the tools and got them the water, whatever they need paid, that they would fix the stations themselves at no cost to the city. Never got a call back. Never got a call back. Can you verify that, Paul? That's true. Never got a call back. Now, if Paul Dowdy ever called me and said, we'd like to fix the fire station at whichever one it is, we'd like to do it ourselves, just get us the paint, I'd be there like over him like sauce over spaghetti.
Right.
But I don't know why we don't do that. I mean, why we don't combine our resources, and we got firefighters who want to do it. Let's do it. They have to live there. They want a good environment.
Right.
So I think that I've talked enough. The conclusions are we don't have the money, and anybody thinks we're going to go on to Washington and say, give us $15 million so we can hire police. I don't know if any of these people running for mayor know what a police officer costs. It costs $50 to start them out. They get $400 a week to train, okay? They're training. And they get $10 an hour for 40 hours a week. That's what they get, okay?
Wow.
You think we're overpaying them? And now when they get on the job, they make $50,600, $635, whatever it is, a year. And that's without overtime, of course. And one of the other things that, so every time, and what does it cost to put one on? It costs a lot of money to put one on. Then you have to add benefits to that. So you're talking probably 30% benefits after that. So it's going to cost you a lot of money. So when people say you're going to go to Washington and they're just going to write a check, why, do you think that they haven't been there before? What do you think? Bridgeport hasn't been there? Do you think Cleveland hasn't been there? Do you think, of course they've all been there. And the question is, you have to look at the budget the way it is, understanding that that budget is going to be in place till June 30th, and I predict it's a $15 to $20 million deficit. Number one, you got to go in there and as much as you can reprioritize expenses that you can change in that budget and bring some more police officers on. You commit to a new police school next year, next fiscal year, because you got to replace them from it's going to be 440 if there's no dropouts, and then you have to bring it up to the levels that it were when I was mayor, which was about 490, almost 500. That's what you need. And then when you have those kinds of resources, then you can do the kinds of things that'll make this city even safer. But you have to make do. You got to, what did I say? You got to go to war with the army you have. And so the army we have, and it's not an army. And by the way, we don't want our police to look like an occupying force here. That's not what this is about. This is about community action. It's about cooperation. It's about building neighborhoods, building jobs, spotting kids, getting into schools. That's what it's about. And you can do that with the right morale in the police department, with and the right community groups that they can get along with. So that's what I have to say about it.
Goal for the number of officers you'd like to have maybe by the end of your first administration?
Well, I want to talk to the Public Safety Commissioner and community groups. And I want to talk, by the way, everybody say, we're going to hire more police, we're going to do this. Did you forget there's a city council involved?
True.
Anybody forget that? There's 15 of them down there.
Right.
And they may have, you got to learn to work with them, and
That's
they
right.
may have different priorities. They may say, you know, they want walking patrols in their neighborhoods. They want, you know, equipment is very important too. Equipment is very important too. But there are 15 members of that city council, and they have to understand. They understand budgets. We are saddled with this budget till June 30th. No mayor is going to go in there and say, I'm putting more police on. I'd love to hire police officers, but you have to be realistic. And if you've been there, you've done it, and bought the T-shirt, $1 on the tax rate. You know what it brings in? $11.5 million. That's if you take off the stabilization on the commercial taxes. But right now, you know, the mayor wants to keep it at 7 years stable because we're the 4th highest in the country, so it only brings in $7.5 million. The cars, there are 114,000 cars in the city of Providence that are taxable. They're worth $702 million. When you take out the exemptions for veterans and all that, you can tax on $585 million. At $60 a thousand, or you know what you get? You get $34 million in. The tangible taxes, where, you know, tax the cameras and the microphones and the computers and all that, that brings in $60 million, okay? So when we raise property taxes, but we raise revenues $252 million. Now, what's the city worth? What's the whole city of Providence worth if you wanted to buy it? According to the tax assessor, $11.7 billion, but you have to add the nonprofits to that. That's another $7.5 billion. That's $18 billion, okay? That's what it's worth. Now, how much do we spend? You got to think of schools. We spend $345 million on schools. So where do we take it from? We take it from schools, take it from kids. We take it from police. We take it to Classical High School the other day. One of the roofs fell in. That's from their school, you know. So where do you take all this money from? Anybody who can tell you that they're going to hire cops immediately and put them on just doesn't know what he's talking about. Doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm being honest with you. I'm telling you what the budget situation is. I'm telling you that I want to hire police officers. We can definitely budget a new police academy the next fiscal year. and hopefully put these police officers on who are just going to graduate. But then it's going to take a real effort from the community and with a good police department under good leadership to do the kinds of programming that I just suggested. And we're not going to arrest our way out of it, as keep saying we're going to build our way out of it.
Amen. I grew up on the east side. I know Billy very well. He always stayed on my mom's steps and talked to Long Island. And I remember you, buddy, doing an awful lot for this community. And the last time we truly felt safe was when you were there. But I'm not here just for...
Did anybody ask you to do that today?
No. But she's so right.
I haven't seen you.
But the thing is, anybody who knows me knows I speak my mind.
That's right. I
am no longer an east sider as far as living here physically, but my heart, soul, and spirit is here. My concern is that the YMCA, where we don't have a boys club here.
Right.
The YMCA is a place that we went to, and the boys club is another place that we frequent. And I always went to the boys club. But now the wealthy people have come and made it into a country club.
Yeah, they did.
And pushed all the poor people out. And then, if you go to the boys club, you can't be past 13 years old and do anything there. There's no open doors. My concern is the police officers that you plan on putting here, they don't always come in here and treat our people with respect. They become another thug force. Wow. So the sensitivity, it's going to take more than respect. It's going to take sensitivity training. It's going to get to know your neighbors, because my son, who never got in trouble, if you walk down the street, they're going to college because you're brown, because you're wearing a hoodie. And I sat in many of the meetings with the past chief, and everything I heard was black kid with a hoodie and jeans and black sneakers. Everybody was black if you were brown and passed. So everybody is suspect. I want them to come into this community and learn the community. Sit down with the people, learn their hearts and their concerns, and respect this community. Don't come in here frisking every single one of our children because they look suspect.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. And that brings up an interesting topic, and that is we have to have a police department, and I think we understand this, that's disciplined, or else it becomes something that, you know, is problematic in a city. So I know that police officers do get sensitivity training, and I know that I've spoken to this with the colonel. No, but look, no mayor, no public safety commissioner likes to get the call, oh, some police officer beat up somebody. There's always two sides to a story, they say. But I think you're absolutely correct that we cannot have that, because the first step toward respect and the first step toward building our way out of this problem is to make sure that the police and the community respect each other and like each other and sensitize to one another.
I want to know.
Let me add something. Let me add something that fellow spoke of, because you're absolutely right when you said that the YMCA has become a country club.
Yes, it did.
Right.
And
and what's happened there is with the new change in census tracts, this community unfortunately has been driven back in the community development block grant money that we can receive. We actually receive the smallest amount now of community development block grant money. If you can believe me or not, Ward 2, which is the rich east side, receives more, has more streets and more area that qualifies for CDBG money than Ward 3 does. But a few things we need to do. Just as the mayor spoke of, recreation has been devastated throughout the years. I believe they've been cut over the years $1 million. And first of all, with that, there's also the past administrations have violated the city charter. The city charter says we shall have a recreation department, and they funneled them into the parks department, and that should never have been allowed, and that should have been put to the voters in the first place. That's a change, and that should have been put to the voters, and the voters should decide if they wanted that. We need to go back to funding our recreation department at levels that it was funded in the past, and also with that CDBG money. I'm proud to stand with James Montero, who's run the Billy Taylor House, or is the executive director of Billy Taylor House. We need to streamline and make sure agencies like this can get their CDBG money on an easier basis, because if we don't get the money to the nonprofits that are doing the work in our communities, the services are not given to our citizens, and therefore when there are not services that are provided for our citizens, then the youth turn to the streets and the crime.
That's exactly right. That's why Kevin is co-chairman of the campaign.
So you're saying no promises on the police academies?
I'm saying what I'm trying to. Hang on 1 second. What I'm trying to say is that I want to be totally honest with you. Do I want to hire more police officers? Absolutely. Will I put if I'm elected mayor, in the budget that I'm going to submit for the next fiscal year, I can't change this one, Would I put in a new academy? Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, that's yes.
Yes.
Well, that has to be looked at. I gave you some numbers here as to how the city funds itself.
The numbers sound like you were trying to.
No, I wasn't stepping back. I was telling you what reality is. And you have to make the priorities. And I told you my first priority is what? I told you it was law enforcement. That's the first priority of any mayor, public safety, because you're not going to have business located here. You're not going to create jobs, and you're not going to have the kind of revenue to support a recreation department.
You stepped up. You stepped up.
I'm trying to tell you that that's the first.
He always stepped up. This is nothing new. This is his city. He made this city, and he's going to save this city.
Okay, let's not have a.
I live in this neighborhood.
My opinion.
And I grew up over here. And I also want to say something to the reporters, because last weekend, there was a shooting at Fed. And then as a result of that night, somebody I know whose house on Pleasant Street got 10 bullet holes in it, with women and children in the house. I'd say around 6 or 7 o'clock on Saturday. 1 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, less than 24 hours, there was another shooting over here on Camp Street. Then 10 o'clock in the morning, I drive down the street, another girl's house on Doyle Ave got 5 bullet holes in it, with women and children in the house. And I rode through the neighborhood, and I'm like, where are the police? Because after 3 shootings that were not reported, that I did not see in the news, I had to report these, and I could show you the bullet holes. After that, I helped my friend pack her kids up and moved her to Pleasant Street, where at night, 6 o'clock at night, a young man was shot outside the house, ran up in that house with a bullet in his face and 2 in his back. Okay? And I watched them drag him out the house. And then I had to help her move again. Do you understand? Where's she going? She wants to stay on the east side. I wish I had another apartment because I would give it to her. But she can't. My daughter, my sister's daughter dates somebody on Doyle Ave. My sister's an attorney. She used to be assistant youth advocate for the state of Rhode Island. She works for DOT. She will not let my niece walk down the street. I have to be careful because my son is 20. And I don't know what's going to happen to him out here because it's not like they're targeting people. It's random. If you're 18 or 20 and you live over here, you're likely to get shot. The Providence Center on Hope Street wants me to come there and tell them that this is a safe neighborhood. My landlord, I own a business on Doyle Ave. He pays $70,000 a year in taxes. He wants to leave here. He wants to take his properties, sell, and leave here.
That we can't have.
And we can't have it.
Thanks so much for sharing that with us. Let's go there, right? That's what we want to hear. We want to hear the stories like this. So we can motivate council people and also neighborhood action. I think...
I wanted to ask you about the city council when you said the policemen and the city council all work together.
No, I didn't say that. Oh, no. No. I said what I meant to say, or what I did say, I think, was that if there's another part to this puzzle, and I don't want to diminish. The mayor isn't the king. A mayor is not a dictator. The mayor is the mayor, and the mayor has to work with the city council because they are the ones who have to approve a budget. And I was trying to recite to you how difficult it's going to be for them and me, if I'm elected mayor, to do this. And I don't want to create any false promise. Am I promising a police academy in the next budget? Yes, because that's the priority. Yes. Am I saying that's the only answer? No, there's a lot more to it.
I just wanted to know if you were supervising the city council.
I wouldn't know.
No, we work hand in hand.
Exactly.
We're 2 separate forms of government that work together.
Oh, okay.
Two branches. Go ahead.
I want to know, in all my dealings with the Providence Public School District, every single one of them, when I brought up the needs of this neighborhood and of the entire east side, not the affluent, but everybody else in this neighborhood, we are met with disdain. We are met with, we don't need the services. Somebody told me outright I could choose not to participate if I don't want my son on a bus for an hour and a half. I can choose not to participate.
What does that mean? What is that?
That means that we don't need the services. It's a luxury over here
You're too wealthy,
for us to have
right?
pre-K,
Right.
social services.
Well,
Martin Luther
that's
King.
why a school administration has got to have a complete look at also. As I said in the debate the other night, the parent goes down to talk about registration or talk about curriculum or talk about busing. I said, you feel like you have to bring a lawyer with you. And that's not good. So all I can tell you is I want to thank everybody for being here today.
Claudia, one more question, please.
Yes, sir.
So what is the exact figure that's assessed to the new academy in the next year budget promise?
In my proposed budget,
yeah.
In my proposed budget, you'd have to hire probably, if you had to, let me answer your question. There are 380 policemen, whatever it is right now. 50 are going to go on, it'll be up to 440, something like that. But I'm going to give you another interesting fact, Dan. 200 police officers presently on the job are eligible to retire. 200 of them. That's half the department, basically. So now if they all decide that they're going to go off into Naples, Florida, where a lot of them go, or someplace, you've got a big problem. So what we have to do is encourage our police to stay. We have to make sure that we look at an assessment of how many officers have left by attrition, and then we'll decide then how many police officers we really need to replace what we have who leave, plus beef it up to the 480, 490 man or woman police department that I think is necessary to fund this. Now, what are the numbers on that? The numbers on that, the police department budget is $69 million a year. Every cop is $50,000 plus benefits. So it's going to cost, if you add, it's going to cost, let me see, whatever the math is, $5 million, $6 million, $4 million, whatever it is. But I'll tell you something, whatever it takes is what we have to be prepared to spend. And also, cars, equipment, all that has to be taken into consideration. The number is easy. Multiply 50,635 times the number of police officers you assess that you're going to need, and subtract the number of police officers who leave, and bring it up to the 490 level. That's the number. And it's going to be a serious amount of money. And yes, you can go, as one of my opponents says, go to Washington and get grants. Yes, you can do that.
And if the audit comes up zero, that there's no waste or fraud.
Oh, you know, Dan York of all people would believe there's no waste or fraud in government. You believe that? Dan York, Dan says there's no waste or fraud in government. I can't.
I said if there's no waste and fraud.
If I don't deal in hypotheses, but you're right. Where's there waste and fraud? I can tell you where there's waste and fraud. There's waste and fraud. I don't want to get political with this thing. I really don't. We were paying, to give you an example, maybe I will. We hire people to lobby, as an example. One of the previous candidates for mayor was being paid several $1,000s a month. Now, mind you, in the summer, to lobby the state legislature. Another guy was lobbied to, now if you're mayor of Providence, the capital city, why in God's name would you need a lobbyist to go to the state legislature? I used to have them all in my office. All the state legislators would put the legislative package together. And by the way, this job was to lobby the Providence legislators. A mayor of Providence ought to be able to pick up the phone, call the Speaker of the House, call the chairman of the committee, because guess what? We've got a lot of clout out there, because we have a lot of legislators. And that's how the Speaker gets elected, by legislators like Providence, you know. And because we have a lot of votes up there. But I have a good relationship with Mattiello. Why do you need a lobbyist? What always amazes me, we send these guys to Washington, we get apartments, they pick up, we have a lobbyist in Washington, right? Big money, big money. What do we have? Sheldon Whitehouse and David Cicilline, and they apparently got a lot of time on their hands, because all they do is raise money. They don't, I don't see them passing bills. Last year, the Congress spends, I think, I don't know, $100 million a week supporting themselves down there. They're supposed to be our lobbyists. Don't you agree with that? Yeah. That's what we pay them for. Why do we have to pay 10 grand or 20 grand a month that some of these cities pay?
But there are many fewer structural fires than there used to be. Would you close the firehouse to find money to hire more police?
I would have to have a study done on that. You know, I tried to close a firehouse back. Paul, when did we have that idea? Where's Paul? Really? Paul, we had I don't want to get you in a jackpot here. Rochambeau, we tried to. I'll tell you the story of that one, okay? I proposed that we close the Rochambeau station. And I don't know if you were around then. Were you around in the 90s? And,
late 90s.
Okay. Closed, we showed. So, naturally, the union at that time was headed by not Paul, it was headed by another firefighter, Stephen Day. And when he found out we were trying to do that, because it would have saved about $1 million a year at the time, we started. I put on one of the TV stations, and that night they didn't even have the logo for the TV station. All they had was a burning building in Fall River from years ago in file footage. It said, "Mayor wants to close station." It had, the east side now is made up, and I'm not talking Mount Hope, I'm talking what traditionally is called the east side, because that's Rochambeau. And what happened was, we embarked on a number of fire prevention safety programs. It's different today than it was years and years ago. We had old housing stock. A lot of houses have been demolished. And when you look, and so I looked at the film, and it said, "Oh, Mayor wants to, affect lives." And it said, well, firefighters went around, knocked on doors, and but they also took pictures. This Channel 10, I think it was, took pictures of this fire truck coming in and out of Rochambeau Station, showing that it was on all these kind of calls. Well, it wasn't on a lot of calls. It went to put a brush fire out. I think it only worked a couple of shifts there. Here's the point about closing the firehouses. You can't do it unless you have a study that'll tell you what the response time is if, in fact, you close that firehouse. Number two, you have to understand how much money will you really save if you do it. Number three, you have to remember that when we talk public safety, fire is also involved, fire prevention, all those things. And you also have to remember that when you look at your, say, high cost of living, if you let these trucks get any older, how does an insurance company rate you when you buy your homeowner's policy? How does he rate you? They rate you by water pressure, they rate you by response time, age of trucks. So if you don't pay attention there, your insurance rates there are going to go up. And by the way, I love people who say, run the city like a business. We do, like a business. If we ran a city like a business, we'd close the prison, wouldn't we? It doesn't make us any money, right? You ask to tell the guy, what about, how many elephants did you buy this week? Let's call all state insurance and say, geez, we'd like to insure our police cars. What do you do? With the police cars? Oh, we go on high-speed chases and we shoot people. Well, what kind of insurance are they going to get there? I mean, so you have to prepare for all these things and have a good understanding and experience to know when you can act and when you can't act. And I'm not afraid to cut, but I'm going to tell you something else. I've gotten endorsed by these unions. I didn't promise them anything, nor did they ask for anything. But I can tell you this, in my experience, that the union leadership of today, and I'm not disparaging the union leadership from before, unions leaders today are far more into the solving of the problem than advocating for their position, because they know that if they stay hard and fast on their end, there's not going to be a city to govern anymore or to put fires out. There's not going to be a city to plow snow in anymore, because we're going to go defunct, bankrupt, and they're all afraid of that. But my feeling is that I really respect the union leadership, because I think it's a lot more, shall I say, involved in the solutions than they are in creating problems. And that's the truth in many ways. Talk to the, in the schools, talk to the teacher, talk to the principal. We're going to talk